So this, there's a scheme to the windows in the church. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you follow the small windows, the lower rank of windows around from the epistle side all the way around to the back and back down to the gospel side, you will see that it is in more or less chronological order, right? So this is where we begin. This is these windows are behind me as I'm sitting at the chair, right, in the service, and we begin at the very beginning with Adam and Eve. So here is Adam and Eve in the garden, and Eve is holding the fruit. Oopsie. And here are the animals, and where's the serpent? Is the serpent in there somewhere?
Yes, there is. Right on the top. It's either on the bottom or it's in the tree.
Yeah, I think that looks more like a bird to me, but I think that's just because of the resolution. So that is, so this is essentially the fall. And you're going to have to shout out if you want to stop and ask me a question, because you're in the dark now to me. So, but do if you have any questions. So we have Adam and Eve, and then we move on through history, and yes, it is history, to Noah. Noah and his rainbow, and here we have the altar that he set up to the Lord after the flood, with the flame on it from the sacrifice. And the ark on the top of the mountain there, and the dove. With the rainbow. God sets his bow in the clouds. All right. So, and obviously we can't get every last incident in here. We only have so many windows. But, so we continue through the Old Testament here. We've got Moses and the burning bush. You notice Moses is keeping his sheep here. And you have this figure with a halo up there in the burning bush, because it's God appearing to, or speaking to Moses from the burning bush. And then,
is there a reason there's sheep there?
Yes.
Is there a reason?
Yes, there is a reason. He's keeping sheep for his father-in-law Jethro.
Oh,
Right? Now, if you remember, Moses was raised in Egypt, right, as the son of the Pharaoh's daughter. But then it's unclear to us whether he knew from the beginning that he was a Hebrew or not. DeMille has it that he didn't, and it was a dramatic revelation, right, and a scandal. We're just not told. It could have been like that. But then he kills an Egyptian overseer and has to flee to the desert from the Pharaoh, right? So after he's in the desert, he meets the daughters of Jethro and saves them from some bandits and ends up marrying one of them. So Sephora. So in any case, he spends 40 years. He spends 40 years in Egypt, right? Then he spends 40 years out in the desert-ish, right? He's keeping sheep. So it can't be completely desert because there's got to be something growing there. But so he just has that life. And then at about 80 years old, he sees the burning bush, goes back to Egypt to do what God wants him to do. So that's why there are sheep there. So, and then over to the right, you have David and Goliath. Now, this is a This is a particular interpretation of David and Goliath. You can see that David is a small boy in this one. It's unclear from the Bible how old he was. He was young because he wasn't in the army, right? But and all his older brothers were. But how young, we're not entirely sure. So and there's Goliath in full armor there. Big spear. Then you've got David's sling, which is flinging the stone at Goliath.
I read in one version, did he have to cut off his head?
Yes, after he killed Goliath, he cut off his head. He used Goliath's sword to cut off Goliath's head. Well, I mean, he hit him with a rock. He fell down. But you want to make sure, right? The last thing you want is the giant getting up and coming after you again. Right. All right. So we're moving on through the Old Testament. This one on the left, who wants to tell me who that is? Isaiah. Very good. How do you know it's Isaiah? Because it says Isaiah, right? Even if it didn't say Isaiah, we would know it was Isaiah because we have a 6-winged seraph here, right? That comes from Isaiah's vision. Right, and the coal, he's bringing the coal from the brazier and putting it on his lips. So it's clearly Isaiah. Even if it weren't marked, it's clearly Isaiah. And this, of course, is in the year that King Uzziah died.
Is that a scroll, some writing kind of?
Yeah, it just says Isaiah there, but yes, it's portrayed as kind of a scroll that he's holding because he's a writing prophet. Yeah. I'm sorry, what?
I was going to say that writing prophecy.
Yes, exactly. So it's kind of used for two purposes there, to portray that and then to actually mark him in case you were biblically illiterate and didn't know who it was. So.
I got a question.
Yeah.
All these souls that are departed from the earth right now,
Yes.
where are they buried? Where are these individuals that Moses and all of this history that we have?
Well, once again, Bert, it's hard to say, right? So we're not exactly told. We are told when Jesus goes on the mountain and glows, Isaiah and Moses come, or not, sorry, Elijah and Moses come to him, right? So that's a little weird. We don't know exactly what that means. Some passages of Scripture seem to indicate that the disembodied souls of the righteous are with God, right? But even if they are, it's not really complete until everyone is resurrected, right? So some people believe in a more of like a soul sleep kind of thing where, your body dies, you are unconscious then until the resurrection. But of course, you have to factor in the whole time problem too, right? What is time? How does it work? We're not sure of that either. So that's a little hard. Yep. So that's Isaiah. Over to the right here. Who do we have? Daniel. You can tell by the lions, right? And here's King Darius looking down. You can tell because he has a crown on his head that that's Darius. And he's looking down after he was tricked into putting Daniel in for the night with the lions. I just like this. I think this window is kind of funny. I think the lions are kind of cute. The lions could be a little scarier, but it's fine. It's fine.
They had their manes combed before
Yeah, they were ready for their close-up, right?
The point is too on these characterizations of the lions, they're not growling, their teeth are not out. They're calm.
Well, this one is. It looks like the lioness here. It looks like the lion with the mane here might be actually more,
They're not fierce.
aggressive. But he's far away. So, yeah.
And they like Daniel.
And they're good with Daniel, or at least they're not going to eat him. So that's fun. All right. So that's about all the Old Testament we get. We're into the New Testament now. And so we have the Annunciation to Mary here. So the Archangel Gabriel and Mary.
Is that Mary?
Yes, this is Mary.
Okay. Well, I see, but on the left, I always thought that was Eleanor because she's dressed the same and she's reading. Oh, okay. Eleanor's on the right.
Elizabeth. You're thinking Elizabeth.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, my daughter is Eleanor, but that's Elizabeth.
Yes. Okay.
So this is Mary, and you can see she's wearing the same colors in this one.
Yeah.
Right, so that's Mary in both of those.
Same outfit.
Yeah, she's got the Marian blue, but then she's got some pink here too. So this is the Annunciation where Gabriel is telling her she is going to bear the Messiah, and then here is the visitation. If you remember, she went to see her cousin Elizabeth after that happened. So there you have Elizabeth greeting her and greeting the child that she senses in her womb. So, which is why she's on her knees.
That was reading Magnificat.
Yeah. So this is the Annunciation. Magnificat was after the angel told her, and her response was the Magnificat.
Right.
So yeah. Yep. Yep. All right. So this is a little it's sort of out of order. We don't have a nativity scene in these windows because we have the nativity scene in the big window in the back, which we now can't see because we haven't moved it from behind the organ. But that is worth our while as well at some point. I couldn't get a picture of it because of that. But this, do we know what this is? Sure. What are our clues? The pyramid in the background, right? The pyramid and the palm tree. So this is the flight to Egypt. Right? Yes?
Oh, Father, this is apart from everything we don't
Okay, go ahead.
What you were talking about last week with the Christmas pudding?
Yes.
We both had something out that,
Oh, yeah?
that it is heated up very hot,
Uh-huh.
and then brandy is poured on it, which is set on fire.
Right.
And brought it to the table. We left that out.
Oh, that's true. True. And that's like the most important part, right? Yeah. So this is the flight to Egypt. You've got Mary again dressed in that pink and blue, right? So you can tell it's Mary, and with the halo, this is Joseph, and she's got the baby, and once again she's riding on the donkey. Right? Yes.
Some people say that they use the gifts of the Magi, the gold, to help pay for their
To finance it? Yeah, it's possible.
We don't know.
Yeah, we're not sure, but it would sort of make sense. I mean, Joseph was not poor, right? He wasn't a poor man, but he was working class, right? So he was a builder. Our older translations say carpenter because in England, builders were carpenters unless they were masons, right? And it's a non-specific word. So the early English translations say carpenter, but actually he was a builder. He may have worked with wood. There's not a lot of wood to work in the Middle East that you would want to just use for building things because it's precious if you have any wood. But he may have worked in some wood, and he probably worked in stone as well.
Last night I went to the St. Paul's Journey to Christ, which had the live nativity. And so when Joseph was introducing himself, he says, I'm a builder, mainly residential.
Right.
And some other side thing he mentioned, but he said mainly residential building.
Yeah. That's funny. Actually, my guess is that he was not mostly a residential builder. My guess is that he worked on the new Roman building around the Sea of Galilee, right? So there were Hellenistic rulers there who were building, and so my guess is that at least some of his time, he and maybe even Jesus worked on the building projects up there.
That's what they said. I was trying to say mainly residential and commercial. That's what he was.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
And you probably get your same thought process.
Yeah. So that's fun. So this is, we get a series, you get the series of the 5 windows in the very back, right? If you look straight back past the font and up the stairs there, you get like 5 windows right in a row. This is one of them, the Transfiguration. So we know it's the Transfiguration because we've got the 3 disciples, Peter, James, John, down here talking about it while it's going on, of course. And we've got, we're in an angle here, so we don't get the whole thing, but we get Moses and Isaiah. Or sorry, we always do that. Moses and Elijah, prophets, with Jesus being transfigured. And you have the cloud behind him.
You know what's weird about that whole thing?
What?
About that one in particular, but there is no window on that side that depicts the 10 Commandments, is there?
There is not. No, it's they do Moses with a burning bush rather than the 10 Commandments.
That's strange.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I think he thought he could, although he's doing Moses again, but he could only do one Moses.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you got to space them out a bit. He wanted, they wanted to get in several things from the New Testament, from the Gospels, right in a row, right? And so they had to kind of squeeze what they did from the Old Testament to do that. So here is Gethsemane. You can see, I don't know if you can see actually, but the serpent is up here, right? The serpent is back. And Jesus is pleading with his disciples to stay awake with him and pray. You can see this, whoever that is speaking.
I got a stupid question.
There are no stupid questions. There are only ignorant questions, and that may or may not be your fault. So go ahead.
The halo that Jesus has on his, what do you call it, Shekinah? Is that
Shekinah, yeah, Shekinah.
When he was going on earth, did he have that Shekinah all the time?
No. So this is not really the Shekinah. This is a halo. So it's just a classic representation of holiness, right? In visual representations.
Yeah.
So So that just tells you this is someone who's really holy, and so a lot of times that's Jesus or Mary, Joseph, or whoever. But you wouldn't have seen that when he was walking the earth unless you had, eyes to see.
Divine.
Well, it would have been a revelation, right? It wouldn't have been just anyone could see that. You would have to be open to the holiness that he represented, right? And so not everyone saw that. Lots of people didn't. Yeah.
I've heard that term before,
Shekinah. The Shekinah or Shekinah maybe it's a Hebrew word that means it's used for the presence of God, the glorious presence of God. So it's the when we talk about glory, we're talking about shining, right? Shining and bright.
It's a different word. I mean, does it mean the same as halo?
Well, no, not exactly. It's tech talk, okay? So it's technically used in the Old Testament for like when Moses' face shines from being in the presence of God. That's the Shekinah that is reflected in his face, right? So it's that old idea of when you are in the presence of God, his glory actually shines. So that's what that means. The halo is simply a kind of, it may be connected conceptually somehow, but it really is just a representation of holiness in iconography, so that you can tell, right? It's one of those medieval and ancient things where they don't worry about realism so much in visual representations. They want you to know what they mean. And so they give you clues, right? And the halo is one of those things.
So are you all saying that is a halo?
Yes, this is simply a halo. Representing the holiness of Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah, that just tells you it's Jesus because he's the one with the halo, right?
Everybody looked the same back then.
Because everybody looked the same, that's right. So you couldn't tell people apart. Yeah, so.
Where the little circle halos like over angels in pictures, where did that come from?
It's the same idea. This is a holy figure, right? And therefore we're going to let you know it's a holy figure, and that's just one of the clues in the picture so you can decipher it.
But in our windows,
Yeah.
is it Christ always have that little red piece at the top and the other holy people don't?
Oh, you know what? I think you're right. But I don't know what that's about.
Well, I think it's mainly like if you have multiple holy people in the same image,
Right.
and you watch them,
This was Jesus. Put a mark on
He
it.
gets the extra.
Yeah, he gets the extra stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe at the top. I don't
Yeah.
know what
I'm sure that's pragmatically what it is.
Isn't that just
But I've never noticed it before.
men from the glass?
That may be lead from the glass. I don't know. For sure. It may be that sometimes it is. I'd have to look into it. So often what you will see with Jesus is a halo with a cross in it.
Yeah.
Right? So you get, now this doesn't look like that. Suzelle is right, it doesn't look like just a leading in between two pieces of glass. But yeah. So that's Gethsemane. This is the crucifixion.
So yeah, there we have Mary and Jesus who both get halos.
Yes, and see,
His has the cross.
his has the cross, right? That's the red thing that you're noticing. So that's the red thing, and she has like a little leading in the, or two leads in the, because it would be hard to make a whole round piece of glass and have it be stable, so that it wouldn't break. So that's probably what that is. Yeah, sure.
Why is it that it says the tree and then other times
Okay, so the cross would have been wooden, right? So it's made from a tree, and it's probably like basically a whole tree, right? It's probably just a tree that's been dressed as lumber, right? But it's not been milled, probably, right? Also, the early Christians recognized Jesus being killed on the cross as a fulfillment of the prophecy, right? That he who is hanged on a tree is cursed, right? And so they said, well, Jesus took the curse of humanity upon himself on the tree. He was hung on a tree, right? So, yes?
This has always been one of my ultimate questions.
I might have an ultimate answer.
4 letters on the cross.
Yes.
I've seen it in different
Yes.
texts.
Yes. So, what are the 4 letters usually? I, N, R, I or J, right? Right. So in Latin, I and J are the same letter, right?
Ancient Latin
Had no J. Right. So that's why sometimes you see okay. So it stands. It's. What do we know from Scripture? What sign was put on the cross? That's right. So Jesu Nazarenus Rex Judaeum. Right? Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. So it's just the initial letters of the sign that Pilate put above him on the cross. So I had an answer. See, look at that. Yes?
You mentioned that wood was precious. Why would they take wood for crucifixion if it was so precious?
Right. Well, remember, this is the Romans who used the cross. Right? So, I mean, it's not that they never built anything with wood. It's just they built a lot with earth and stone because it was readily available as opposed to the wood, which was more expensive. So, and they probably reused crosses.
Yes, that's right. Afterwards they would use them.
Right? Yeah. They probably reused them as crosses.
Is it also possible that 2,000 years ago there were more trees there?
It is possible. Yes,
like
it
the
is
cedars of
possible.
Lebanon were a thing.
Yes. So yeah, exactly. So they could import, right, wood from, say, Lebanon. They had lots of wood in Lebanon.
It's dry houses, more irrigation.
Right. Right. That's true. So it may very well have been that it wasn't as scarce as it is now. On the other hand, the point about getting the cedars from Lebanon is that's a luxury item, right? So, and that's why it's used in the temple and all that.
What is I read wormwood?
Wormwood, yeah. It's like a bitter herb. Like it's a woody herb, but yeah. Yeah, no, it's a particular plant. Yeah. Malcolm?
This is just a bit of trivia, but the location of that crucifixion window is exactly opposite the one of the hanging.
That's right. No, you're right.
So if you stand at the altar and look straight back,
Yeah. So if you look straight back at the back windows, this is in the center, right? Jesus' body being pulled down from the cross. And if you turn around and look straight up behind the altar, you see the crucifixion, right? The crucifix. So.
We'll see how many people pay attention to it all sitting here and there's some doing.
We're not saying no.
Oh, whoops. All right.
Jesus.
So, no, this one does not depict Jesus, but it is from the gospel narrative, right? So it looks like it could be Jesus, but then you see wings.
Oh, angel.
Right? So it has to be an angel, and then the empty tomb.
Oh,
Right? So this is Easter Day.
wow. Wow.
Hmm?
Mary, Peter, and John.
Yeah, it's unclear to. No, this is the women. This is three women.
Okay.
I mean, you can't see her face, but
Yeah.
I have to say that the artist at the studio that did those windows, I think did an absolutely amazing job of getting as much detail as he could with those slits.
yeah.
When they said, we're going to get stained glass windows of these scenes, I thought, no, you're not.
No, you're not going to get them in there, and then he did.
He's in there.
Yeah, he did a really good job.
Yeah, you did a fantastic job.
Yeah. And you can see it. You see, part of the way he did that was by just framing it narrowly, right? He didn't try to get the whole woman in the picture, right? So he just kind of,
Capacity.
yeah. That's
And
nice.
other windows, you need to keep them out.
Yeah,
You have to.
that's right. He doesn't try and get everything in there, but everything's clear. When he does get it in there, you know what it is.
That's right.
So he does. I was actually really impressed when I first came here that it is rare to find windows this good, made that late, right? They were made in the 90s, and it's amazing that he did all of this. So
It's also amazing, because of the way we did this, that the windows are in sequence and actually tell a full story.
yes,
Rather than having an ascension window over here.
That's right.
One
That's right.
and hog over here, which was something.
That's right.
They're all mixed together.
yeah, it's nice, right? I mean, a lot of churches, they have a lot of things, but then each one was done individually, right? So they don't make up a pattern. Ours do. They tell the story of salvation history, right?
And that's what we use it for.
Yeah.
The original stained glass windows were used as teaching, right?
Yeah,
We use
exactly.
those things for the same thing, back then, Sunday school kids.
That's right.
Walk them through those things. And then
That's right. If you go to the cathedrals of Europe, right? So here's an example that I actually know about. You go to Christ Church Cathedral in Oxford, right? The Cathedral of the Diocese of Oxford. It's actually in the university, and what you'll find is not all of the windows go together, but there is a series of windows that tell the story of the life of Saint Francois, who's the patroness of the cathedral. So they were used that way. But because ours were all kind of commissioned at once, there's a complete pattern. So, anyone see what this is? So again, we have a little bit cut off here because we're at an angle. You can see just a bit of the halo, right? So we know that's a holy person. And they're at a table, and this person with the halo has his hands on the bread, right? So this is Cleopas and his friend. It's the meal at Emmaus, right? It's Jesus, and they know him in the breaking of the bread, right? That's what. If you ever heard a prayer like that, be known to us in the breaking of the bread is one of the private prayers that the priest says while washing his hands and stuff, right? So, and that's a reference to Emmaus, because they didn't know who he was until he blessed the bread and broke it. And then they saw who he was. And then he disappeared.
I was wondering, the details of these pictures, the person that did this,
Yeah.
what is he going from? It's from his memory?
Well, honestly, I don't know. I mean, he's, I suspect, from not only the quality but also the style of this, that he knows his Bible. Okay, he seems like a very traditional person. Okay, so I don't know his other work. Maybe he's done lots of more modern work for other people because that's what they want. But you may know better, Malcolm, because you worked with him. What's that? Oh, so he did these windows, right? So this is 1974.
Does it say that?
No, I can just tell. It's the style, right? That's what they wanted in 1974 or 76 or whatever, right? I don't know. It's definitely in the 70s.
73 or 74.
So, see, yeah.
There are stars on each window, and that star
That's right.
walks up and down.
So, yeah, the star over here,
Yeah.
and they're all, that's for the nativity, right? The stars.
And two of these windows somewhere have three stars, and one of those was given by the young family because they had three sons.
Yep.
Anyway,
But I suspect that he knows his Bible fairly well, and could look up any details he needed.
he's done both.
But he's done both traditional and less traditional work.
Yes.
Yes, he could also ask them. All right. So.
Jesus.
Yeah, so this is Jesus with the red cross in his halo, right? And he's showing Thomas the marks in his hands.
Oh.
Right?
Wow.
So this is the resurrected Jesus with the wounds that he has to that Thomas has asked to see, right?
Doubting Thomas.
Yeah. And here we have Jesus. I think this is the label on it, the little plaque by it says Jesus awaits his disciples. But specifically, he awaits them at the Sea of Galilee, and he's cooking breakfast for them. Right? They're out fishing. This is Peter who jumps out of the boat to swim to him. So that's why he also has a halo. But
Is that possible? Is it possible in Peter?
yes, this is St. Peter here.
That's what I thought. And he's about to sink because he goes down.
No,
No, that's a different story. This is not Peter walking on the water. You can see his legs are underneath the water here.
this is post-resurrection.
So this is post-resurrection. It's all in order. So the last one was Emmaus. This is where Jesus meets the disciples in Galilee after his resurrection.
Yeah.
And if you remember the story, they're coming back into shore, and they go, "Who's that out there?" And Peter is the first one to recognize him, and Peter jumps in the water and swims to meet him because he's not going to wait for the boat to get there.
This is the one where Jesus asks Peter 3 times.
That's right. This is Peter, do you love me? Feed my sheep.
Eat my sheep.
But I don't see the red around.
That's right. It's not there. I don't know exactly why. It wasn't there at Emmaus either. I think maybe it's because these scenes
After the resurrection.
are, well, no, not so much after the resurrection as both of those scenes have sort of a point of question in them where they don't necessarily recognize him right away. So maybe that's why he doesn't put the red cross on it. I'm not sure. But in any case, there's nothing like magical about the red cross. Like it could still be Jesus without the red cross or with it. So. So, and he's cooking fish here on the open brazier, which is what the scripture says. He's got a hibachi out on the beach, and he's cooking fish. That's what he's got. All right, so now we're beyond the Gospels, right? So the last 5 were those 5 across the back, right? They're all from the ministry of Jesus. Okay? Two pre-crucifixion, the crucifixion, and 2 post-resurrection. Right? So, and so it's nice to see that it's balanced like that. It's just kind of fun. So here is one of those early miracles in the church in Jerusalem that Peter heals Dorcas, or
How do we know it's her? 'Cause I remember she did a lot of sewing and stuff, but I don't see anything that shows.
Yeah, I don't see anything like that either. This is one of the few that I think you really kind of have to have a label to know exactly who it is. Although,
If you know the story.
if you know the story and you know where it comes in the larger scheme of things, it would be easy to narrow it down, right?
Look, there's your shoe back
Yeah, here's your clue. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but there's an upside down cross
there. Very
on his robe there. So that's the Petrine symbol, because the story is that Peter refused to be, or asked not to be crucified right side up, right? Because he felt unworthy to do that. So that's so then you know it's Peter, and so you can work it out from there. So also, even if you didn't have that, if you realized that they were all in order, then you could probably work it out too. Yeah, these are a little out of sequence.
That's the Ascension.
Yes, this is the Ascension.
Is that August 15th?
No, August 15th is the Roman Catholics would call it the Ascension of St. Mary. Right? That's a Marian feast. We celebrate the Marian feast, but not necessarily the Ascension. Right? But this is the Ascension of Jesus. You can tell he's got the cross on his halo, and he's going up into heaven in the cloud. Right? So that one is slightly out of order. And then here you have the Areopagus. Right? How can you tell? Because you've got this Greek temple here, right? It's actually not the Forum. This is the one in Athens. What's the big one in Athens? What? Parthenon. Right. So that's where he is. He's in Athens.
He's not in Nashville?
He's not in Nashville. No, not in Nashville. He's in Athens, talking to the philosophers who are there.
So how do you know it's Paul?
How do you know it's Paul? Because it's the Areopagus because you see the what's it's there.
By the location.
By the location, you can tell. Yeah, because Paul is the one who preached at the Areopagus.
And also, look at the guys, they all have the prior haircuts.
Now this is interesting. He's got like a late medieval tonsure here. I'm not sure why, but they're all arguing. You can tell, right?
Yeah, there's something here.
He's got his fist up here, like making a point, and you can tell Paul is speaking because he's got that classical speaking pose, right?
Was the first picture too that what my point is they don't have their heads covered. They're all dressed. I guess so, like.
You mean these guys
Yeah.
don't have their heads covered?
Yeah. They have Greek haircuts, I guess.
Right. Yeah, they do. They have very Greek haircuts. You're right. I don't know about this one, but I know they would have had their hair cropped, right? Whereas a Jew is supposed to let his hair grow, right?
We'll see on the next one.
Well,
Yeah.
I wonder, but I'm the tenure.
Tonsure, yeah.
However you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Do you think it's pointing to some monk later on? Maybe.
It could be, sometimes artists will kind of put little references in that they don't expect anybody else to get, but it's just for fun for them, right? So it could be. It could be.
Following the ascension picture,
Yeah.
the guy in the lower left,
Yes.
is he turned away from, or have I
Yeah.
just not looking at it?
I think you've got it. I think you can see he's covering his face with his hands,
Okay.
right? So I think,
Right,
yeah, I mean,
I was
it's a
wondering.
little weird because you get all these different kind of reactions, right? Some of them are looking and some of them are not, but they're all sort of appropriate reactions to the ascension.
Okay, so we don't have like a specific person that is.
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
No, it's just different kind of reactions to the ascension.
The one in red.
I mean, in a way, right, this is appropriate because on the one hand, he goes away to prepare a place for us and send the Holy Spirit, right, all of that. So, and he's ascending into heaven, so, glory to God. But then on the other hand, he's going away from us. So,
Yeah.
right, so. that makes
What's the
sense.
next one?
Or maybe that's someone turning away from Christ.
No, that one in red is listening to the one who's talking with his hand up. What the father said, or arguing. And so the
No,
one,
these guys are arguing.
yeah, and so the one in
they're
red is listening
great
to them,
philosophers.
what they're saying.
These guys are all attentive, right, to the ascension.
The guy on the picture on the left,
Uh-huh.
the guy in the red top, and
This guy.
he's kind of supporting, it's like he has his arm.
Yeah, he's got his arm out, kind of comforting him, maybe.
Person, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Ready to go to the next one?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now we're post-biblical.
So,
Yes.
that previous one,
Yes.
I'm confused whether there's nothing on there that shows Pentecost, is there?
But Pentecost is one of the big ones.
What is confirmation?
Yep. Yep.
It is Pentecost, but it's also confirmation.
But it also represents confirmation. Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So here we have St. Augustine, not St. Augustine of Hippo. What's that?
I said Canterbury.
Canterbury, yes, St. Augustine of Canterbury. So this is St. Augustine. He was a monk. You can see his tonsure, although I'm not sure he would have been tonsured exactly that way in the 7th century, but it's representative. So he's in a Benedictine habit with tonsure, right? With the archbishop's staff, and you can see the boat over here. He came over the English Channel to Kennington.
So do you think in the previous one, when St.
Uh-huh.
Paul was preaching, that he kind of
Yeah.
stuck him in there? Or some monk?
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, or it's also possible that that he figured it would be unobtrusive because maybe it's not a tonsure, maybe it's just the guy is balding, right? Who knows? But it may be that he had a favorite saint and he just said, "This is going to be Saint so and so, who is also a monk." Right, I'm just going to put him into one of these pictures here, and no one else needs to know, right?
Is this the St. Augustine, that did the St. Augustine's prayer book, or the prayers?
This is, okay, so St. Augustine didn't do St. Augustine's prayer book. The Society of St. John the Evangelist did St. Augustine's prayer book. They call it St. Augustine's prayer book because of him.
Oh, that's my question.
Right, because they are an English monastic order.
And it wasn't because St. Augustine of Hippo, which I always thought it was.
Right. No, that's exactly right. So this is St. Augustine, who was an Italian monk, and Pope Gregory sent him to the Angles of all people. And he went out and he got scared, so he came back, and Pope Gregory sent him again. So finally he made it to Kent and found a friendly person in the Queen of Kent. And so the rest is history, as they say.
And Canterbury is so important in this.
Absolutely.
Stone steps are worn.
Yeah, they're hollowed out like the marble steps at the Capitol or something. They're hollowed out from so many years of use. Yep. So, St. Francis with the birds and the animals. Oh, I guess it's all birds here. Yeah. So, just preaching to the birds. Right? And he's got the Franciscan habits.
Now, one bird on the lower left has no tail, and that has always just bothered to have.
This one? I think that, yeah, maybe. Maybe it's just a really short tail. Maybe it's a hummingbird or something.
Big fat
I think it's just a perspective problem. I think it's just that the tail is there, but it didn't quite come out looking like a tail. That's all.
Right.
Some birds have their legs sticking out of the
Yeah. All right. Here is Archbishop Thomas Cranmer. Cranmer is the one who composed the first couple of books of Common Prayer, first couple versions. Okay? So that's why he's up here. He is also the one who was Archbishop of Canterbury at the break from Rome, right? When we arguably reformed the Church of England. We're going to talk about that. But yes, he was the Reformation Archbishop of Canterbury. And so you can see he's got the Book of Common Prayer here. You can tell because it's a red with a cross on it. And then he's got a quill with an ink pot here.
What's the symbol of it?
Up here?
Yeah.
Those are the arms of the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Okay.
So the Archbishop of Canterbury has arms with a pallium on it. Pallium is a special kind of stole. It's like it goes around and hangs straight down, right? That is traditionally sent directly from the Pope to any new Archbishop. So those are his arms. And technically, well, the St. Augustine of Canterbury is the one who received the pallium from the Pope at the time, but they made it into the arms of Canterbury. So. Okay, so this is out of order. It's out of order because it is out of order. I saved it till last. Okay, this is if you're standing in the center aisle and looking straight toward the back and the font with the windows of Jesus' ministry behind it. This is all the way over on the right-hand corner of the room, right on the back wall. So, I think it's interesting that this is labeled woman with halo, because it's not just a woman with a halo. It's a woman with a halo and a crown. Right? Somebody's having some fun here. All right? Because this is a depiction. You can also see she's got those colors again, right? The blue and the pink. And here's the serpent again. Right? This is Mary, Queen of Heaven, Regina Coeli. Right? So someone's having a little fun with us because we're Anglo-Catholic, and so they put a Regina Coeli window in. Not that there's anything particularly wrong with that, but it would typically be something you see in Roman Catholic churches, not in Anglican churches. So it's a beautiful window, though. So Mary is the woman from Genesis, right? At the curse, God says, "I will put enmity between you, the woman Eve, and the serpent, and he will bite your heel, and you and your children, and him and your children." Yeah. And so she's stepping on the serpent, as was prophesied all the way back in Genesis 3. All right.
What's 20 after?
Oh, okay. So the scheme for the top windows, the bigger windows, are that they're all sacraments, right? So if we say, as Catholic tradition does, that there are 7 sacraments. So this is baptism, right? This is Jesus being baptized in the Jordan by St. John. And this is Eucharist. It's a depiction of the Last Supper. I'm going to have to just kind of go through these. This is penance. This is the one that always trips me up. Because you go, oh, well, this is orders. It's Jesus giving Peter the keys to the kingdom. But it's not. You can tell it's Peter by the keys, but then it's Peter confessing. Right. That's right. He's confessing his denial. Right. Right. So that's confession. This is confirmation. This is a depiction of Pentecost. You can see you can see the tongues of flame on their heads and the dove at the top.
Who is the woman?
I'm not sure she's anyone in particular, but there were women in the upper room as well as men. So the women would have experienced Pentecost as well. So this is unction. This is the healing of the beggar. Right. Now this is. Now wait a minute. Let me get this straight. This is the guy at the pool of Bethesda, I believe, because this is Jesus. It's not one of the apostles. So this is the guy in the 4th chapter of John, where he's trying to get in the pool when the waters are stirred. And Jesus says, "Do you want to be healed?" And he says, "But I can't get in the water." He says, "Do you want to be healed?" So that's him. And then this is matrimony, because it's Jesus again at the wedding at Cana, where he turned the water into wine. And then this one is for orders. This is the consecration of Samuel Seabury, the first American Anglican bishop. So, and you can see, well, maybe you can't tell, but these are the Scottish bishops, not the English bishops. The English bishops wouldn't consecrate it. So he had to go to Scotland.
There's 3.
And there's 3. That's typical of a consecration of a bishop. It only takes one bishop to make another bishop, but typically we have 3 just to make sure. Redundancy is good, right? So
Yeah.
often you have more than that, but there will be 3 consecrators listed in the history, in the lineage. And here's the last one. This is the one all the way around to the right, so this is the one I'm facing as I'm sitting in the chair. And this is St. Michael the Archangel. You can see the devil here, the dragon, and then St. Michael in armor with putting him down. The reason you can tell it's St. Michael rather than St. George is that he has wings. St. George is depicted exactly the same way, but he doesn't have wings. So they're both killing the serpent. So there you go.